Hello, everybody. My name is Hlongwane. So this week I'm asking one question. Are we going to see history repeat itself? Are we going to have this moment replay itself? But this time around, we're not asking Jacob Zuma to go. We're asking President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Zuma must fall. Zuma must fall. Zuma must fall. Zuma.
So the reason why I'm asking this question is that the revelations from General Hlongwane about 2 Sundays ago have really shaken things up, right? It's not one of those stories where you give it a day or two, give it a week, and people are going to forget and completely move on, like we've seen with other revelations. This story is going nowhere. In fact, it has taken a life of its own. It is growing. There's momentum. And we see this through the protests, nationwide protests taking place. We are seeing a lot of rallying behind Hlongwane, a lot of questions. It is top of mind. And when I kind of get a sense check, right, of everything that's coming online and all of that, I'm asking myself, is this going to happen again where the public comes together, we take to the streets, national shutdown? We've seen a lot of this sort of rhetoric on Twitter as well, where we're saying Ramaphosa must go. He must just go. Where we potentially see a motion of no confidence coming, where potentially the ANC will get so pressurized by the public to eventually get Ramaphosa to move out before the end of his term. And if indeed this is something that is cooking, if it's something that's bubbling under, where we're going to see the same exit, the way Jacob Zuma exited, what I just want us to think about is, let us not find ourselves making the same mistake again. Because if you remember the Zuma Must Go era, where people were saying, Zuma must go, that's it. For the public, what fueled them to take to the streets, what fueled that pressure where we saw the EFF, DA, just a collaboration of political parties taking to the streets to say Zuma has to go, was based on governance issues, the Nkandla matter, accountability. That was why the public took to the streets, right? But now that we are here, in retrospect, it's almost difficult to say what was the motive for the ANC to go ahead and remove Jacob Zuma, because they basically put the final nail in the coffin. For the public, we know it was based on the frustrations around governance issues, the matter of Nkandla, and many other problems, state capture included. But for the ANC, what was the motive? I think now that we are here, after everything that we've heard from General Hlongwane, and I've mentioned in previous videos, Hlongwane is not just speaking on allegations. What he's saying connects a lot of dots on what we've seen in other instances. Based on this, I'm asking the question that for the ANC, was it really about removing Jacob Zuma in order to improve governance, in order to improve accountability? Because if that's the case, how come we are in the same place with President Cyril Ramaphosa coming from the same ANC? Hence, just to kick off this video, I want us to think about that. I want us to think about where we find ourselves today. I want us to think about the growing frustrations. But most importantly, I do not want to see us making the same mistake again, where we act haphazardly and say, listen, get this guy out. We do not care who you replace him with. What are we to make out of this fact that, again, it's an ANC leader who has brought us to the same situation? There's no growth, there's unemployment, and there's high crime. So point one, but I just want to throw out there, is rhetoric over action. This is something that we need to think about. Ramaphosa, this is definitely his strongest tactic, right? He's been the guy of rhetoric, saying all the things that we want to hear. He is a president of family meetings, getting us around at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. during COVID, to just go on and on and on and on and on, right? Saying everything we want to hear, making us feel good, particularly as a black majority, saying all the right things, touching on history, touching on the future, touching on what the government is doing, this and this and this and that. All of it sounding absolutely amazing. Great for sentiment. But we still find ourselves where we are sitting in destruction. There's high crime, there's unemployment, the cost of living, and, right? Yet we have someone who makes us feel excellent. And I think the risk of this sort of tactic where the rhetoric leads action, rhetoric goes ahead of results and everything else that we truly want, things that we really, really need as a country, is that the risk of it is we are just going to slowly regress. We're going to slowly regress where we start to see less and less and less devaluing of the money that we're earning. We're going to see less and less opportunities in the economy, higher crime, where it's just going to everything that we know and everything that we witness in our day-to-day lives will just persist. The regression will happen, but we are going to be completely silent. We're not going to hesitate. We're not going to resist the regression as it happens, because the problem is the way in which the rhetoric has been designed is playing to something that I think is a real issue, especially amongst the Black majority. And that is a real fear that a lot of people have. A lot of Black people have a fear of potentially going back to where we come from in our history as a country. That is a real fear. So the possibility here, and I'm not saying it is the case. I just suspect, based on the rhetoric that we get from President Ramaphosa, that he is well aware of the fear that we have. He's well aware. So I think it's important that we think about this, because the regression is happening and there's absolutely no change, no accountability. The guy does not seem like he's bothered. Point 2 that I want to highlight, and that is the public and the ANC do not view accountability as the same thing, right? This is another recurring issue that Ramaphosa has really been good at, right? I want to make a quote here from his speech that he delivered during the presidency budget vote, which happened last Wednesday, where he was basically refuting criticism that's coming from his own members of parliament along the lines of there is no accountability in government. I'm going to quote what Ramaphosa said in response to the fact that people don't trust that there's accountability. Open quote. "We should desist from sweeping statements about accountability lacking in government. The DPME produces a range of public reports. These include annual performance plans, performance monitoring reports on key sectoral outcomes like health and education, frontline service delivery monitoring reports, as well as citizen-based monitoring reports. So before we stand here in this house and make generalizations about lack of accountability on the part of the government, let us take the time to read." The issue here with Ramaphosa referring us to go read some reports, which I'm not doing that, right, is that it's clear as day. For the ANC, accountability is acknowledging that there's a problem. We acknowledge that there's a crisis. We acknowledge that young people want jobs. We acknowledge that there's high crime. That's not accountability. The public, on the other side, they want to see heads roll. We want to see harsh punishment, not this long justice process that goes on forever. That is not what the public wants. Accountability for the public is the real deal. And they know what that is. They know what that is. So the last point that I made here is that I do not see our economy taking off. I do not see our economy growing in a meaningful way with the ANC at the helm, right? I think there's a lot of evidence to support this. Again, back to Ramaphosa. The guy just does not seem to be willing. He doesn't seem to have any sense of urgency on all of these issues. If you take what has happened with the terrorists coming from the United States, the guy just seems to be moving slowly. It's business as usual. To everyone else, this is a huge crisis, right? To him, it's a completely different story. I made a note here that there's also this rhetoric that you tend to find from Ramaphosa whenever he delivers these speeches in parliament, that for him, economic growth cannot be achieved because it almost looks like we first have to make sure that when there's economic growth, this particular group of people in society do not make it. So the economy, if it has to grow, these guys cannot succeed. So that attitude is almost saying the only way we can move forward is if we can have guarantees almost that this particular group will not make it because we want to see this group winning, right? And I do not have the stats to prove this, but it's almost clear as day. Ramaphosa has been given there's a lot of recommendations coming from all types of organizations, all kinds of people about what we should think about when it comes to the economy, what reforms are necessary when it comes to the economy, right? And there's just he doesn't give a damn. He's got genuine partners now who've been putting out ideas on what must happen, cut costs. Action SA had a whole debacle about their recommendations and what he should do in order to see the economy grow. The guy could not be bothered. And if you look at some of these reforms, right, they address things like, let's change this policy. They address things like, let's not put a quotas on who to hire and what not to hire, which is why my observation is that, no, he thinks that the only way that we can get to the economy is if the policies make sure that this person will not succeed over this particular person. But the problem is, it's again, just a thought of envy, right? Where you want to go somewhere or you want to do something, but instead of focusing on yourself, instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, you too focus on the next person. You focus on, is the next person doing the same thing? Are they also starting a YouTube channel. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. Or if they do one channel, I'm going to do two. Very problematic. It's even in terms of biblical principles and biblical values, it can destroy, right? Because if you focus on yourself and you worry about what you can do, what is at your disposal, you grow, right? If you focus on other people, it's destructive, you lose focus. So I like this image, right? This illustration is a popular one whenever we have these conversations about, where should government focus? What should government give to who? Because, for example, I lean towards the equality illustration here, which shows the tall, middle, and short person, and the government basically giving equal support across the board. Basically, government not selecting who must win, who mustn't win, and all of those things, right? Because if we're saying that this is the starting point, the problem, for example, if you take equity, that is redistribution. If we're starting off on the foot of redistribution, resources run out. Because we're saying with equity, we're taking from the tall person to give an extra step to the short person so they can see over the line. So what happens eventually is that the short person will always need support in some way or another. Then there's a justice point, which I think a lot of people might think, oh yeah, this makes sense. Just move the fence, put the fence down. Again, it's not realistic because in life, you will always have the fence. The fence will always be there. The fence is just life as we know it. It has its ups and its downs. It's a roller coaster. Some days are good, some days are bad. You win and you lose, right? So the fence doesn't really go anywhere. It's just the way it is. Reality, on the other hand, also speaks to when government overplays its hand, the short person, they dig a further hole for them. I actually picture the short person in this instance, which is now dug into a hole, as what we see in South Africa today, where people are struggling financially and they fall into crime. And that gap of, whatever they were going to do in the future, the tall person who's already ahead just basically benefits, and we start to see the Mamkizas of the world, the Edwin Sodis of the world, and the short person is left far behind. In fact, they regress even further because now crime becomes a vehicle for them to make money. They start to go into that in order to make money. So equality for me makes a lot of sense. Government is not getting involved. They're not choosing one guy over the other. They're saying, yes, we're not born equal. We are not born equal. But it's important that we give people the opportunity to self-determination. They must be able to be self-reliant as much as possible. That ability is what we all have as humans. We're not going to do that in the same capacity, but we all have that ability to fend for ourselves and make a plan. I want to end off by making another example on equality, right? Think about the music industry to drive the point on equality. The music industry says, for example, take Rihanna. She's a famous musician, globally renowned. Everyone knows Rihanna. Rihanna is the one who's got the talent, right? She's got the talent. Let's assume she's a great singer. I know there's been questions of people saying she can't sing. She's got the talent. She's the voice. But not every single person that works around Rihanna has the voice, right? So there's a general acceptance that when it comes to music, the one who holds the mic, the one who stands in the front is the one who's got the talent, right? That's widely accepted because then it wouldn't be music if you put me there. It would be something else. So that's widely accepted. That would sort of be the tall person, right? The one who takes the mic will get the endorsements with brands. They will have the high numbers of followers on Instagram. And who knows, maybe they make more money, depending on what the splits are. But because of that one person who's got the talent, God-given talent, so then it doesn't mean that the tall person will always be a white male. The singer could be anyone. It's a God-given gift. It just so happened that they have the voice. Now, when the person is allowed to sing, perform, and attract crowds and all of that, guess what happens? Then there's other opportunities that are created from that one person who sings. Rihanna now has a tour manager. Rihanna now has someone who does her costumes. Rihanna has someone who does her makeup, her hair. Because now you start to see the middle guy, because the tall guy exists and he's got all of these other things. The middle guy, there's something for him to do, right? He can make his own living from this one guy who sings. Maybe I'm good with my hands. I can sew Rihanna's clothes. The short person, maybe I'm not really into art, all of that, but I drive. I'm patient and I'm a driver. You also get a role in the same industry, now assisting the music artist, you drive them around. You feed yourself. It's not like you are Rihanna, you probably will not even know your name, but you're not stranded, you're not completely out of the game, you're still in the music industry, and you are Rihanna's trusted driver, you're her favorite driver. That too can also be rewarding on its own, but I think it's important that we also accept life for what it is and not always try to push people in a non-organic way, because I think it just does not yield results. Okay, cool. That's it. And I just want to say, I hope I was able to provoke some thinking around this matter. It's an important time, right? Because like I said, there's growing frustration, but it doesn't mean now we have to just say, hey, anyone but Noma Yini, but Ramaphosa, because we don't want Noma Yini. We want someone who's going to lead South Africa into a better place. We do not want Noma Yini. We don't want the same issues coming up again, but now with a different face, right? And that means we don't really think I don't think the ANC is capable of giving us anyone who can take us forward. So think about these things, and yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Like this video as well. It helps quite a lot, and I look forward to seeing you guys again when I drop the next video.